I've been going over my gear and kind of thinking about what works, what doesn't work, what I have problems with, what I'm replacing, what I'm adding and removing. And I thought it might be good to share some of my thoughts, conclusions, changes, what works, what didn't work with you in case you were thinking of getting some gear or just want to see like, hey, what's been successful or not. I'll start with my big four. First item is the backpack. I've had some issues with it, notably the squeaking. I have found that the squeaking is due to this arc here, so this doesn't seem to always go the right way. It's supposed to have a nice arc on the trail, but what happens is sometimes this cruises out and goes sideways. And I've found that when I take my pack off for brakes or anything, I need to get it sideways and then push it back into place so that this is even again. It happens too often. I don't know if it's due to a pack defect or what. I noticed that the loop over here is a variable and this one's not. So I don't know if that's a design defect in the pack, but I seem to have managed to make my peace with it and work around it, at least for now. So I'm going to keep it as is and just try to go forward. So I seem to have been able to solve the squeaking problem for the most part. The burned pack piece, I have a replacement that's going to go in here for that. That's nothing wrong with the pack. That's more something wrong with the lighter. You can't do anything about that. But other than that, I like all the side pockets, hip belt. The weight of the pack can't be beat because it's so ultra light, and it doesn't really hold up to a lot of rain, because if you get rained on, it'll drop off the fabric a little bit, but it'll eventually soak through. That's why it's so important to have a dry bag inside the pack. Related to the rain is the Zpacks pack cover. I got the largest one, and this thing was useless to me. I don't know exactly how they expected you to put it on. I didn't figure out the attachment point. Zpacks really has no instructions on it, but regardless, it wasn't large enough to really cover everything, including my side packets and everything. Maybe it would work on a completely stripped down pack that had not much in it, but I found that I couldn't attach it sufficiently with the attachments here to get it around my pack. And once the wind came up, it would just pull it right off. So if you had rain, you could maybe make it work, but when you had wind and rain, it didn't work at all. So I just removed it out of my pack. And if it rains on my pack, the outside gets wet and I just rely on my dry bag. So this, no good. I didn't like the Zpacks rain cover. Maybe another vendor or something could do it, but this was our largest one, and I found it to be a weird thing to attach and nothing that I liked. It was more frustrating than anything and really gave me zero use. Their dry bag, however, has performed incredibly well. I'd recommend this one over, some people put a trash or compactor bag in their backpack to act as a dry bag. I thought this was really good because it fits the Zpacks arc haul really well. I like that you can seal it and then push the air out, roll it down, and then snap it closed. So you don't have to worry about any of the rain getting in. It's been really effective. So even when my backpack was completely soaked and dripping from some of the rain and mist and everything else, everything in here stayed dry. I've never had it leak or anything. The nice part is sometimes in town, I use this as a laundry bag. So when I go to a laundry, I can just put all my dirty clothes in here and take it to the laundromat, and acts as a nice little laundry bag. So I found this to be really effective. It's nice and lightweight, fits the pack really well, and I'm a fan. I'll mention this because it goes on the pack. This is the Zpacks water bottle holder. You can attach it to one of the shoulder straps, and then snap in the water bottle on here. And when it works, I really like it because you just snap the water bottle in and you're good, right? Well, this is the, fifth one I've had. So I've actually been through 4 of these. All of the others, and first I thought maybe I dropped it or something, but now I know it's not it. They're just fragile. They always end up snapping on one of these things, and I've had one last a little while, and then I've had them snap within 4 days. So these are garbage. So I do have one more, but I'm not going to use it because I've had 100% failure rate thus far. So these are no good. What I replaced it with was the little custom pouch that Chrissy made me. And this has worked out really well thus far. And it can't snap, it can't break. So I really like this and plan on keep on using it. My ThermaRest has held up pretty well. I did have an early problem with it where it got a leak. And I did need to repair it, and you can see the repair right here. When I got to town, I actually had a tub, which was nice, and was able to submerge it in the water, and found that there was one little hole right here. I don't know how that got in there, especially on the top. It wasn't even on the bottom of the sleeping pad. But they have a repair kit that comes with it where you pop this little glue dot down and then put this sticker cover over the top of it. It's held up and I haven't had it leak since, so it seems to be pretty rock solid. You can't beat the comfort. I do like to sleep on my side when my glutes aren't hurting, of course, and this is very lightweight for the size, of course, and it sleeps comfortably. So and it's warm. So when it's cold out, even down to freezing temperatures, I've never been cold on my back or side when I've been sleeping on this. So this has actually performed pretty well, and I want to keep it. It's a lot nicer than using one of the just ThermaRest foam pads, which are not comfortable on your side. This Sea to Summit pillow, which is kind of getting dirty, but that's the trail. The inflatable pillow absolutely is a favorite of mine. This helps. It could be considered a luxury item. I don't for my neck and everything, but very comfortable. A lot better to inflate this and sleep on this than trying to stuff your clothes or something underneath your head, especially when it gets cold and you need to use those clothes to stay warm. So there have been times where I'm putting on a lot of what I've got just to stay warm at night, and so I wouldn't have that to put my head on. This is nice. I absolutely am planning on keeping this in the pack because it's really comfortable and it makes sleeping a lot better out on the trail. My Enlighten Quilt has worked pretty well. It keeps me warm for the most part. Too warm some nights if it's warm enough, but that really hasn't been a problem out on the trail. If I were to buy it again, I'd probably still go with the quilt, but I would get the one with the permanent foot box because I never sleep with the foot box open. So I always have it zipped up, and in fact, I just store it that way lots of times, just so that I don't have to keep zipping it up. And since I do that, they sell a version that has this foot box without a zipper. It's just a permanent thing. That'd be the one thing I'd probably change on it. Thus far, I have the 20 degree, and I don't think I'd want to do the 10 degree on most nights. Maybe in the Sierras I'd change my mind, but right now, worked pretty well. I do like how quickly it dries out. I haven't had it soaked completely, but I've had the foot box and the top get quite wet when it's raining and during times when there's fog and stuff, and it gets kind of soaked. It dries out really quickly as long as you have some decent sun. In fact, I've even dried it out inside a tent where I didn't have sun and I was concerned about rain, and it dried out in there pretty well. So dries out pretty good as long as you don't have it soaked completely through. I brought this down hood with me. It's also an Enlighten equipment thing, and the idea is you can put this on while you're sleeping and keep your head warm. I just didn't use it that way. For me, I use my beanie, and I've slept with that. It's a lot more comfortable, and quite honestly, it's not that this failed, it's that it's too effective, I think. It actually is very warm to the point of being so warm, I didn't want to use it. So up until the point I decided, forget it, I'm just carrying it for no reason, I actually mailed it back out probably around maybe mile 250 or something, just because at that point I'm like, I'm not going to use this, and I haven't used it when it was really cold, instead of using my beanie on there. So it's really warm, and if you were looking for something that was trying to get as much warmth for your head as possible, it comes down and covers the neck and everything. So it's really effective for that, but it just wasn't the thing that I was using, at least at this point. So I've taken it out of my kit. The water filtration system I'm using works out pretty well. I keep a Ziploc bag that I put everything in because I like to take this and put it inside my sleep under my quilt or in my foot box at night, so that if it freezes, this doesn't get frozen, because that would make it not work. But Sawyer Micro is what I'm using. I had a Sawyer Squeeze before. It works pretty well. The flow rate is less than the Sawyer Squeeze. I don't think it's a whole bunch less, but I can tell the difference out on the trail. You're trading for a significantly lighter, it's an ounce, I believe, or even more lighter, and it's also smaller in size. So lighter and smaller out on the trail is kind of nice. You do have to wait a little bit longer when you're filtering, so that sometimes, I wish you had the Sawyer Squeeze, but I've gone back and forth whether or not I want to put some heavier piece of gear in for, the times I sit down and filter water. And I'll probably just keep this because it's just a little bit more time. So I probably need the rest on the trail anyway. The dirty bag that I brought, this has been excellent. I really like this. The nice part about using this instead of a water bottle, and I've seen people that only had water bottles, so you can put this on a smart water bottle and use the water bottle for your dirty water and then just drink straight out of this. I don't do that. I filter my water, and so all my bottles have clean water in them. This is how I used to fill it. Some of the locations on the trail are the water may be trickling out and you cannot get a water bottle under it, but you can sometimes get this right underneath, or you can lay it down in a stream and have it flat. So this adds a lot of flexibility for collecting water, especially when it's just a small little trickle. And that was very helpful. And I've had more than once where if I just was using a bottle, I wouldn't be able to collect water without trying to make some scoop out of a leaf or something. So really useful. It also allowed me to scale up. A couple times I filled up all my water bottles, but I still wanted a little extra water. So I put some dirty water in this and then put that in my back mesh pouch with the water in it. And that allowed me to add another 2 liters of water to have with me, and then I could just filter it later. So a big fan of the dirty bag. The Cenox held up really well. And I see a lot of people on the trail using it. So really like the dirty bag. The Mountain Hardwear Puffy that I've been using, I love this thing. It is lightweight, but it's kept me warm. I've used this as part of my sleep system many a night. So I have a larger one, even though a large might fit. I have the extra large because it needs to go over like sleep clothes or whatever clothes I'm wearing, and so having more room in it certainly helps out. But been very warm for me, and I can't hike in it because you start to sweat, but it's been really useful. The one thing that I started doing that is really nice is you can take, they have very large pockets in these puffies. And what I do is I put things like my phone, sometimes my battery when I'm recharging my phone, inside the pocket. And I can do the same thing over here. Anything like if I wanted to put my filter or anything else, instead of putting in my foot box, I can put gear that I want to stay warm inside these pockets and zip them up. That way, when I'm sleeping, it gets the heat of my body and keeps it from freezing. So that's been a real useful thing for me too. When it gets cold enough, it just gives me another place to make sure that something doesn't get too cold to freeze. My Arc'teryx rain gear turned out to be a lot more useful than I thought it was going to be. Had more rain, more cold, more wind than I had planned on, and this has worked out really well for all of that. I've seen quite a few people on the trail that brought basically like windbreakers, but didn't bring good rain gear. And I mean, the Arc'teryx it's pricey, but it is very good rain gear. And I've used this for a windbreaker, like in Tehachapi when it was so windy. This actually worked pretty well, held on and kept me warm even though that wind was freezing. So it acts as a good windbreaker. And it's also been, when the rain is just coming solidly down on me, I stay 100% dry in this. Same with the pants. Sometimes in some locations I've had to go through lots of wet brush from the rain, and this keeps you from getting your pants all soaked. Your feet still do, but at least it keeps your pants from being soaked. The other nice part about this worked really well, is when I do need to go like do laundry at a laundromat, the kind of planned garb that I was going to wear actually works. So I take off all my other clothes and I use the rain pants and my puffy and go do my laundry. So it works out really well that way. And then it allows me to clean all my other clothes and come back and swap back into them. My main clothes have worked really well. I've got a couple small holes in the seat that I sewed up on the trail for this, but from the pants. But they've held up really well, and I've liked wearing pants versus shorts. I've seen a lot of people with scraped legs, and I like going through the brush, and I like having coverage for my legs, and it's worked pretty well with the longer pants for not needing gaiters, the little cloth things you can put around your shoes to keep dirt from getting in them. So it's worked really well. Sometimes when it gets very dirty, the pants start getting stiff from the sweat and dirt and everything. It's kind of gross. One thing I have done is when I get to camp, you can unzip the pants and take off the bottom part and go wash them and then let them dry out and then just put them back on. So that works pretty well right there. But very happy with these, plan to continue on using them. And I have a backup pair that I'll use if anything happens to these. Same thing with the shirt. You can see that it's starting to get worn a little bit from either the sun or the backpack or the sunscreen or something. So you get a little discoloration in the back, but it still works pretty well. This Columbia shirt is pretty amazing to me. It has the UV sun blocking capabilities, but what really surprises me is when it's hot, this breathes pretty well, so you don't feel too hot. But when it's cold, I actually feel the insulation of it. So I don't know what kind of dark magic they've done, but it provides insulation and ventilation pretty well, and it's just a comfortable shirt. I absolutely plan on using this, and like my pants, I have a backup one that I'll probably swap out when I'm halfway done with the trail and bring another one in, because maybe that one will be in tatters, or maybe I'll just keep it. But very, very good shirt. This beanie was kind of a last minute thing I threw in. I thought, it might be more comfortable just to have this, and I'm absolutely thrilled that I brought it. very comfortable, very easy to take on and off. Can throw it in a pocket and use it to hike in when I'm cold, use it to sleep in at night. It's been very useful and absolutely one of my favorite pieces of gear. For my gloves, the sun gloves that I have work really well. These are kind of the old version of the Outdoor Research gloves, and I've discovered one thing. The new ones are longer and go up the wrist, and I wondered why they changed the whole design of them. And I think why they go up higher is one thing I found, and I don't think you can see it, is I'm getting tanned above the arm there where I didn't get any sunscreen. So I have to remember to put sunscreen on my hand. And then it will also tan the outside of your fingers because you still get sun on there. But it does a good job of blocking the sun on your hands. And it's also pretty good for just providing a little warmth. They're comfortable to hike in. I plan on keeping those. The gloves worked pretty well. I've used them to sleep in at night and stay warm when I'm going down the trail. I thought maybe I've had some times when they didn't feel warm enough, and I wished I had something else to try. They have the shell in there that you can put on the outside, but I am throwing in, and I'll probably take these out and just keep the shells. But I'm going to try out the possum down gloves. They're a possum down and merino wool gloves, so they stay warm, and I've tried putting them on, and they're actually pretty warm thus far. And they're purported to stay warm even if they get wet. So I'm looking forward to trying these out, especially when it's cold at night for gloves to wear, or even during the day. And apparently, from what I've read, people say, oh, they'll go down to 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit before you need to add like a shell, which I could use the rain shell that's for the Outdoor Research gloves, and then try that out. So I'm going to bring these to see if they keep me warmer on cold nights. And they're pretty lightweight, so I'm not really worried about that. But I'll probably take the shells out and then use these and see how that works to see if they're more comfortable than just using the Outdoor Research gloves. Because, like I say, my hands did get cold sometimes, and it was kind of tough to get them warmed up with just these unless I was actively hiking up a mountain or something that caused me to get some warm blood flow. This Exofficio hat is another thing that I like. While it looks dumb as all get out to have the back of this hanging out and around, it makes a huge difference. You wouldn't realize until you're out there in the sun and you feel your neck getting hot. Even if it's got sunscreen on it, you feel it getting hot and it gets uncomfortable. It feels like you're about to burn. You put this over there, over your neck, and it really does shield you a lot. It really reflects the sun, does a good job of that. The other thing that I wasn't thinking of is during the wind, I hadn't planned on, during the wind, you can cinch this thing down and it goes over your ears. And so it kind of covers it, and it actually provides a little warmth. So if you're in the wind and you've got the cold wind, you can actually use this as a little bit of a shield on there, whereas anything else you tried to wear, like the beanie or something, you get blown away. So provides a little shield for your ears from the wind while you're wearing it. My camp shoes were one of the things I was on the fence on. Well, I'm no longer on the fence. I am fully in the yard. These things have been excellent. I can't believe that I even questioned bringing them. These particular ones I really like because they're so lightweight. They're only 8 ounces, so they're hardly anything to bring, but they have been very useful to me. When I'm in town and I want to let my shoes dry out because they were soaked, you wear these around. Wear them around town. It lets your feet air out, a lot more comfortable. When you're trying to go do laundry and you're washing your socks, you don't want to just wear some nasty old shoes without any socks. So wear these to the laundromat. They have been really useful for me to wear, and these particular ones have really held up well. These are Shama Warriors, or what they're called, and really like these. Absolutely going to keep them in. This would be a part of my gear from now on. For my food bag, I do like this lock sack that comes in the sack, and I've seen other people that use it. So I put my food inside of it and kind of organize things, and I don't know if it's really effective. It's supposed to keep at least rodents and stuff from smelling it, or bears. I don't know how actually effective it is. I do know that I had problems with it tearing at the seam. So if you had any weight in it and you tried to grab it up here, I had it tear in a couple spots. So what I ended up doing was just reinforcing the entire top with duct tape. And it's held up since then, but that happened early on. So I continue to use it, but just know that if, if you want to grab the top there, you might have it split on you. The Zpacks food bag, I really like. I like that you can roll it down and it's kind of like the dry bag. It is not a dry bag though, so it will get wet. And I have the kit for doing a bear hang on there. The one thing I will point out is Zpacks includes some ultralight carabiners. I don't have one here because there were two, one that for hanging this bag and then one for attaching to the rock bag when you throw it up over the tree. But those ultralight carabiners are super cheap and they both broke within a couple times of using them. I went and bought a couple new carabiners. They're just kind of cheap ones, but they're way better quality. And the Zpacks ones were kind of like this cheap plastic, and the bar here was just cheap plastic, and it started breaking right away. So those were no good. They both had problems, and I don't even know what happened to the other one. I probably threw it away already. But we're gonna try these out. These are a lot more solid and they're pretty lightweight still, so they'll be able to hold up the bag, and I shouldn't have any problem with that, but we'll see. I just know that the Zpacks ones, don't even bother with those. Throw those away if you get one of these and these food kits, and use something else. Now, while I removed my down hoodie from my kit, one thing I did order were some down booties to keep my feet warm. My head never got cold when I was out on the trail when I was sleeping, but my feet have gotten cold, especially when they were wet and I needed to try to dry them out. I tried these on one night when it was going to freeze, and so I wore my normal sleep socks right here, which are just some kind of thick boot socks. I wore these normal sleep socks, and then I put the down booties over them, and my feet were nice and toasty. I did not get cold feet on there. And for the lightweight, how light a weight these are, and since my feet can sometimes get cold, it's good to keep those nice and warm and treat your feet. So these will stay in my kit. I've actually entertained trying to, or not trying to, but I've actually entertained buying some down pants as well, because I wear a down puffy when I'm sleeping, got down booties for my feet, and sometimes my legs get cold, and I actually will use the rain pants as an extra layer of warmth. So down pants might be better if I needed to go below freezing. The sleep systems work pretty well. These are small and fairly lightweight for the warmth that they have, and I've needed the warmth out in the desert section this year because it's been cold more than it's been hot. So this Smart Wool stuff, comfortable, works well, pair of socks, and I can always layer up with my puffy and put that over things, and put on my rain pants if I need to. One night I actually put on my raincoat too, just to stay warm. But they work pretty well. For the Sierras, depending on how cold it is when I go in, I have the same version. These are the Smart Wool 150. I have the Smart Wool 250 that I can swap in, so I'll stay a little warmer at night. The sun umbrella has been useful. I don't know how long or if I want to continue to carry it. I may I may leave this one here and not bring it back out with me. I'm not certain what I want to do on that one. I've used it really more as a windshield and a rain umbrella than I have as a sun umbrella. I've used it twice as a sun umbrella and numerous times for rain, and then to block wind coming in from the side or something. So it's been useful, and it's lightweight, but it didn't really get the use that I thought it was going to get this year. But I'm absolutely happy with it and would recommend it just for the versatility. You know, rain or shine, you can use it. I love my trekking poles. These new black diamonds get a little loose around here. They're either too loose or too tight, and see, that actually slides off, and so that's kind of a problem. And there's a little tool they include to tighten this down, but it still can slip a little bit. So they're not as good as my prior pair because of that, but they don't have the same plastic snapping problem that those do. One thing I will point out is the cork. So I recommend cork handles just for the fact that when things are cold or wet or something, these feel a lot better when it's wet outside. So if your hands are wet or if it's cold, you can hold these and it does not feel bad. It actually feels pretty good and keeps your hand a little bit warmer. And I really noticed that when I was going through a cold, rainy section, that my hands on these didn't feel bad even without gloves when they were wet. So they're a lot more comfortable. Now, I use these also for my tent system. So my Zpacks duplex, which has worked out pretty well, it's kind of a not super comfortable. If you're looking for the utmost in comfort, you don't want this. If you're looking for lightweight and the ability to pull stuff inside your tent with you, you can get a duplex, and it's a much lighter weight than a lot of the little single ones. But just be warned that this, you need the trekking poles. They have a freestanding system you can get for it to put with this, but I don't see, it's just way too expensive. And what's the point if you're going to get Zpacks? If you're going to go and add all the extra weight, get something else. But using this with these, this can be a challenge sometimes, especially during windy times. One thing I found, I have the baskets here, and the snow baskets that you can put on the end work really well for the snow. I've used them there, but I came across another method that actually works out pretty well. Sometimes the ground's really hard and you can't get this driven into the ground to put your tent up next to it. So I actually take and dig a channel in the ground this way with the trekking pole with the tip, and make a channel not perpendicular, but parallel to the front of the tent until I've dug down to about here. Then I can put this basket on and set that down into the hole, and it gives it some more support because it's got a wider base of support. That works really well for that type of thing when the ground's really hard. And the other time it works really well is anytime I get a lot of wind, I always put these on because it adds some more support, because that wind starts pushing and pulling everything and putting a lot of stress on the tent. And when it starts to pull one way or the other, this provides some more of a base, because other times that wind pushes it and it just pops right out of the ground. So these actually I'm going to keep in my kit. Even if there were no snow, I'd keep it in there just because of the wind. That's been really helpful for me, or mounting it into ground that was problematic. One part of the tent system that I consider to be a complete failure is I went with the lightest titanium tent pegs that I could get. And see what's happened here. Sometimes when the ground's hard and you're trying to drive it in with a rock or something, they bend and they're tough to get bent straight. They don't have very good holding power in the ground. So I've got this one that I couldn't bend back out. I've got another one. That one's kind of useless. Since I had 2 extras with me, that helped, and I've been able to do things. But they do not have a good holding power when you start getting wind. They're a pain to try to drive into the ground, and they've been a very big source of frustration with me trying to set up my tent. And I've taken a lot longer than a lot of people around me while setting it up because I'm fighting with these. I am going to replace them with these. And they're a lot larger. They're not that much heavier. They're actually pretty lightweight. These are very lightweight. But these have a lot more strength. Going to have a lot more holding power with the 3 sides. And I'm looking forward to these. I'll be able to drive those in a lot better, and they should hold a lot better. So we'll see, but they have to function better than these. These are pretty much garbage, so I wouldn't use those again. So I'm gonna try these out and see how they work. These little towels that I got from REI, it's just a little microfiber towel, but it's pretty absorbent. You can wring it out, and it's got a little attachment so you can attach it to the back of your pack and let it hang off and dry out. I originally brought 2 of them and lost one somewhere. I have no idea where I lost it, or I just noticed it wasn't there one day. This has been incredibly useful. I use it to sometimes dry off my feet when they're wet. I've used it to dry off when I wash up near a stream. This is really useful for when there's condensation on the inside of the tent. Take this and wipe down the entire inside of the tent, and I can wring it out outside and just kind of get that dried out and let it dry out that way. Really useful. The only complaint I would have is sometimes this is wet, and I really wish I had another one. So I'm replacing the one I lost so that I have 2 of them. They're very lightweight, and it will be nice to have one that's dry. There have been times when it's raining and I'm using this to wipe things down or dry things off, and I'd really like to keep another one inside my dry bag for later, so that if I'm inside the tent and I want to dry off my hands or dry off my feet or something like that, this can soak up water, and I'd like to have one that can be dry so that at least you can swap back and forth while one's drying. So I have missed not having the second one, and I use this one a lot. So really useful having a little lightweight towel, if nothing else, just to wipe down the inside of your tent, because I fill this cloth up 4 or 5 times sometimes with the amount of condensation that's inside my tent. That's water I'm not carrying that I get to dump out on the ground. My first aid kits work pretty well. Probably the most conspicuous change I've made is I keep more earplugs in there, because these are the little cheap disposable ones, so they get a couple uses, and then they start to get grimy or don't fluff back up as well. So I use them a few times and then toss them when I find a trash can, and then that way I don't have to try to keep using the same nasty pair, and they weigh nothing, so they're really useful that way. I have the one thing I've probably added is I've added in some more bandages. I picked this up after I ripped the skin off my foot, and these little Tegaderm films will they weigh nothing, but they'll actually go over a wound, and I actually put these over my feet. Well, at least the one spot on my foot where I ripped up the skin, and this made a good waterproof cover, and I used that for a few days that way, and it was good for taking a shower and everything too, to keep that protected. So got a few of those in there that are really useful for if you have a big problem, and a couple more bandages in here. I've got the blister bandage that I used when I was out on the trail, so that actually worked out pretty well. So I make sure I have that in there. I also keep some cloth tape. I had a small thing of cloth tape, but I keep that cloth tape just in case I need to do another tape like that for my toe or something. It's nice to have in there. It adds a little bit more weight, but when you're out there and you're having a problem, it certainly is nice to have the tools you need to add some comfort or prevent infection. So, I see some pretty meager first aid kits. That's not what I want. Yes, I carry this and don't normally need it, but that's not why you have it. You have it for those rare times when you do need it. And I won't go through all of my electronics. The battery has worked out pretty well. The two things I'll mention are these. This little mic that I brought out, I thought I would use for maybe wind and preventing the wind. I tried it out. I tried it in really bad wind to see, hey, what does it do? And if you've got a light wind, sometimes this will help out. But if you've got a heavy wind, it takes it from you can't hear me at all to you can't hear me at all. So for the really bad wind, it really doesn't do much. And for the light wind, sometimes I just wait to talk when the wind goes down, or you just deal with the wind a little bit. It's kind of a pain to try to get this out, plug it into the phone, get it on. So it's just not for what the utility I get out of it, the extra effort, it kind of ruins some of the spontaneity. And so I took it out and I haven't missed it because I didn't really use it that much anyway. And the value I was getting from it was not really that good. And it's a shame because they're not cheap, these little lab micros, but I can use it in some other thing. The other thing is this cheap little Bluetooth shutter. I would love it if this worked. So the idea is that you hook this up to your phone via Bluetooth and then you can press this to take a picture or to start a video or something like that. It kind of works. I have problems with it. It will kind of work. One of the problems though is the way it works is by activating the up volume, I believe. And that doesn't work with the particular video recording software I have, which is Filmic. And Filmic actually has an on button thing that you press. So I can't use this to actually start and stop video if I wanted to. I can use it for pictures, but I can't use it for video. And since it's kind of flaky sometimes where it will not connect and then I have to go back into Bluetooth and reconnect it, I just decided it's not worth it. I just activate everything manual on my phone and deal with it that way. If I needed to take a picture of myself, I can always use a timer or ask someone else to do it. But both of these pieces have been taken out of the gear. Well, that pretty much wraps up my gear tour. I didn't go over my toiletries and my toilet kit and everything. That works as one expected, and nothing really to comment on there. And there are a few other odds and ends that really aren't worth commenting on. I'd say probably my biggest surprise were the camp shoes. Absolutely love those. Those have come in handy so many times that I can't imagine not having them in the kit now. And having the ability to scale up for when it's rainy or cold has really been helpful. So bringing not only a rain coat, but rain pants. There were a lot of people I saw on the trail that did not do that. And so when it got cold, when it got wet, when it got rainy, they kind of suffered. And I was glad to have that. Kept me a little more comfortable in times when it was decidedly uncomfortable. And I thought it was kind of funny. I had some people, especially after Tehachapi, where they had all the wind and it was so miserable. They came up to me and I was still wearing my Arc'teryx gear, and they walked up and were like, wow, man, I wish I had that going the whole way through. So they were really wishing they'd had some better gear. A little more weight, a little more cost, but the ability to actually use those pieces of gear were really helpful. And the rain pants, being able to use those for laundry and being able to use them for wind, being able to use them for rain, have just super useful. So I can't complain about that. I would absolutely recommend bringing that type of gear because you never know what the weather's like. And your gear by nature for a through hike like this is kind of a generalist kit, right? If you were just going to go out and hike specifically in the snow and during the winter, you would bring a whole winter loadout. If you were going to go and hike in the rain, you might bring all your rain gear. And if you knew what the weather was going to be like, you could really dial that in and save some weight. For a through hike like this, you kind of need to be able to deal, maybe not the best, but well enough with different things. And overall, I've been really happy with my gear loadout and my ability to accommodate wind, rain, heat, whatever. That's actually been really good, and I've been happy with what I put together. With a few notable exceptions, I'm keeping what I've got and maybe adding a couple little things in there.